Thank you very much, Derval. Thank you, Joe, for the invitation. It's a great honour to be here. There is a gentleman who shall remain nameless. Indeed, I don't know his real name, as he uses a rather elaborate alias, who has developed a habit of messaging me via Twitter to make one particular point in increasingly forceful terms. In fact, it's gone beyond messaging now and is veering into what is known as trolling, an indication of the intensity of his feelings on this matter. His argument is that there is no room for a middle ground in Northern Ireland, that you are either pro-Irish unity or pro-British Union. To claim otherwise, he says, is Northern Ireland office propaganda. Whilst somewhat lacking in nuance and perhaps a little irritating in his persistence, I have to acknowledge that he has a certain point. Northern Ireland is not designed to have a middle ground. It never has been. Northern Ireland is a country of discomfort. It was drawn in full knowledge that it would please no one absolutely, and displease many people very deeply. Nay, as with so many created in the same era, it is a statelet forged through the application of trauma and social, political, and economic upheaval. I'm afraid I will return to this point later on, and the word Brexit may appear. And predictably, therefore, Northern Ireland is a society of unease. Its near-century-old wizened roots are still producing unhealthy and prickly branches that extend awkwardly into the present, whether it be in relation to commemoration, religion, immigration, education. Blossoms of commonality struggle to rise from the rocky roots of division. So to turn to the title we've been given for this afternoon's panel, does all this mean that a normal society is by definition impossible in Northern Ireland? Well, not to put too fine a point on it, yes it does. We can see this in the 1998 Good Friday Belfast Agreement. If there was any moment to create a normal society, surely this was it. A critical juncture, a new start. And to that end, what the agreement went for was a process of normalisation. Nowhere was this more clear than at the border, of course. Movement to what the agreement termed a normal, peaceful society was straightforward enough to do. Take away the watchtowers, pull away the roadblocks, fly the soldiers back home. That's a start. Take the EU monies, leverage the single market, make the most of freedom of movement. That's a big step forward. On top of this, then, strengthen the cross-border links you already have and create new institutions to spread the benefits and add democratic oversight. Here you're going some good way towards betterment. Cross-border cooperation became normalised in that it was not radical but logical. It's only in such times as the present that we can appreciate in actual fact how extraordinary such cooperation was and is. And this was all made possible by the fact that the 1998 agreement itself was not actually designed to create a normal society. Such a normal society typically depends on a common demos. In a normal society, legitimacy and stability are conferred on a political system by its civic culture. In the agreement, the official recognition and, shall we say, intended parity of two national cultures and citizenships connected to two different states is very unusual. It's not normal. What makes it extraordinary? The explanation lies in one word: both. The birthright of all the people of Northern Ireland to identify themselves and be accepted as British or Irish or both, as they may so choose. Having established Northern Ireland's abnormality, I want to consider where this leaves it in light of the present challenges. Specifically, a global crisis can the centre hold? This theme makes little sense viewed from just across the way in the north. A better question for us would be, as Derval's already said, can a centre form? This is where the interesting results of the Northern Ireland Life and Time Survey can offer some illumination. What I want to focus on here draws on some recent work I've done with the brilliant postgrad student Ben Rocha. And this is about the difference that is being made by Brexit. So the headline results, as we've already heard, from Susan and Derval are that a clear majority of respondents, 1 in 2 in Northern Ireland, identify as being neither unionist nor nationalist. And this is a trend that has grown steadily over the past 20 years. Many also express a confidence in having both a British and an Irish identity. And this is worth noting in the context of Brexit. A quite predictable finding from the Northern Ireland Life and Times survey, particularly looking at what happened since the referendum in 2016 and looking at the most recent results from last year. A quite predictable finding has been that Brexit has made those who hold a strong Irish identity more likely to be in favour of a united Ireland, while those holding a strong British identity feel themselves to be more against it. What about those neithers who report their identity as being across at some point along the British-Irish spectrum? Well, despite their avoidance of the traditional constitutional divide, they do, on balance, believe that a united Ireland is more likely than not as a result of Brexit, but they're not overly enthusiastic either for or against it. It's definitely a middle ground. Another interesting takeaway comparing 2016 to 2018 is the decline in respondents from all communities who believe that Brexit has had no impact and will have no impact on the likelihood or desirability of a united Ireland, i.e. people increasingly think that Brexit is having an effect. In 2016, 62% of unionists said that Brexit made no difference to the likelihood of united Ireland. This dropped to 44% last year. Unsurprisingly, there's been a steady and consistent increase in the proportion of nationalists who believe that Brexit makes united Ireland more likely, from 37% in 2016 to 62% last year. Also noteworthy is a large decrease in nationalists who say that Brexit's had no impact on the desirability of a united Ireland. All this suggests that there is an increasingly broad agreement across the two communities that Brexit will have some effect on the future constitutional status of Northern Ireland, even if there remains profound disagreement about what that should be. Where are the party supporters in all of this? Well, the Northern Ireland Life and Times survey asked people whether Brexit makes them more or less in favour of Irish unity. Although we can presume that very few, if any, DUP supporters were at any point in favour of Irish unity, we can see that anti-Irish unity sentiment increasing over the past 3 years. Between 2016 and 2018, there's been a large increase in those who say that they are less in favour of united Ireland as a result of Brexit, going up from 12% in 2016 to 32% last year. On the other hand, Brexit has made Sinn Féin voters, already one presumes in favour of Irish unity, increasingly in favour of a united Ireland, up to 50%. Saying they are more in favour of Irish unity as a result of Brexit. These findings reinforce the increasing polarisation between the attitudes regarding the likelihood and the desirability of Irish unity between unionist and nationalist communities. What's happening to the others? One very interesting finding is that alliance voters have also become more in favour of united Ireland in the context of Brexit, up to 30% last year. The success of Alliance and the Green Party in the local and European elections imply that there is an emerging centre taking political form. It's a pro-Remain and a pro-devolution voice. Both of these things are very much under pressure. But it's worth remembering that this centre ground was pretty tame a couple of years ago. In fact, being in the EU and having devolution was where everyone stood. This emerging centre ground is not just a forward-looking one, therefore, but a residual belief in the potential that we held pre-2016. It's a truly British-Irish centre ground, if you like, a belief in the capacity to be both and that the idea that that is meaningful. And this centre ground is forming here, even as cracks appear in the British-Irish relationships at the highest level. I mentioned at the start that Northern Ireland was created in the knowledge it would cause undeniable harm and disruption to hundreds of thousands of people. 100 years on, we have achieved not a normal society, but at least one in which there is a hope of moving beyond the harm. And with confounding timing, we also have an incoming British Prime Minister and numerous MPs apparently prepared to consider doing something that will cause undeniable harm and disruption to hundreds of thousands of people, causing the rift to run most deeply at the very point of connection between Britain and Ireland, the Irish border. Wander the Irish border region, and you are literally at the centre ground of politics in these islands. It's peaceful. It is extraordinary in its own way. It is diverse. It is British. It is Irish. It is both. Long may it be so. May the centre hold.